Hi, you all, and welcome to the Voices of Logistics Planet podcast, where we deep dive into the world of logistics, uncovering its many layers through the voices of industry professionals. And nevertheless, it's summer. Today, we have a really super interesting guest who brings, if my calculations are correct, more than 24 years in logistics, mainly in contract logistics sales. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Karl Gygax, if I pronounce it well.
That's correct. Thank you, Thomas. Hello, everyone.
So yeah, hi. So Carl, thank you for taking the time being with us today, and we are excited having you. And I think this episode will be really interesting as it delves into the contract logistics sales, where I think, which is I would say one of the most complicated, has most complicated sales cycles. And so I think many of us of who is watching us today will get a lot of great insights. Yeah, so let's kick off. So Carl, firstly, let's start with your story. Yeah, so how did you find your way into the world of logistics?
At university, actually, I initially wanted to go a bit different path, but the professors in the technology management and logistics branch, they were more interesting than the ones I had initially looked at, and I ended up working at the Logistics Institute and found logistics appealing with the international possibilities. And I ended up joining Fiege Logistics back then for a trainee program. And that's what stuck around, the love for logistics there.
So of course, and you changed many other companies as well, as I saw from your profile. Yeah. So talking about contract logistics, okay, it isn't an easy cookie to crack, I would say. Yeah, it has long sales cycles, other things. So could you please share the biggest complexities involved in contract logistics? From your opinion.
Yeah, sure. So contract logistics, as you said, has long sales cycles because it's a complex product. It's not you just need a transport from A to B, but you first need to agree on what is it exactly that the customer wants. And sometimes if the customer says they need something, they don't really understand what are all the full possibilities that can be offered. So you need to uncover all of those um, actual requirements. What is the source of the customer's needs? And if you do it right, you have several workshops, especially on the more complex projects, where you're going from needs to data to modeling, and you verify what you're doing in iterations with the customer, going back and from, going back to the drawing board, going back to the data, and eventually you will get to a bespoke product for the customer that is fulfilling the customer's needs at the best possible price. So that's why it's a lengthy process.
Okay. So, and you mentioned that asking questions, and then identifying the needs of customer, then you can build those unique products. Yeah. So, what strategies, from your experience, work best, for identifying those 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 needs?
Well, best is always face to face. Sit down with the customer, asking questions, trying to listen at first, trying to understand rather than trying to sell a product you have in mind. So, complex product sales is not about selling first, it's about understanding first.
And of course, I think here, when talking about general logistics, most of the times, but I'm teaching this that it's not the thing, but most of the times, the price pays a huge, influence. And with contract logistics, of course, price is important, but then maybe, with the help of unique value propositions, you can build some unique products which are not based on their price. Yeah.
Well, yes, price is still important, and many companies nowadays have a two-stage process where you first get technically qualified, so they ensure that you can do the job, and then they check who can do the job for the least price. But there's also many companies that haven't done it in such an excessive way as those companies I just shared, and there are a lot of addition to the price or anything on top of the price is also trust. So you have to build trust with the people that you are able to deliver silent operations. That's in the end what they need. They need silent operations so they can, live their day-to-day life easily.
Yeah. Good. And you're now working for a big company, and earlier you worked for, I think less smaller companies. Is there a difference, when selling, contracts in a smaller, medium-sized, or big company? Maybe there are more opportunities. I don't know, for from bigger. Maybe there are more flexibility for smaller ones. What's your opinion on that?
Selling to or selling from?
Selling from, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with smaller companies, you get obviously better possibilities on making your own decisions. You have a bit more different degrees of freedom. When you're going to bigger companies, it's a bit more structured. Who does what? Who takes on which responsibilities? In my prior role, when I was solution design manager, I had a clear definition on what elements are my part of the decision, which elements have been taken on by other SMEs like HR, like finance, that they would provide their input to the solution. And then it was also clear hierarchical matrix on which level of revenue I can make own decisions or can where I need a CEO to agree to for the larger bits. With my current employer, we also have hierarchical ways, but it's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit still here, and we can try our own ways. Yes, we need to get approval and agreement, but it's more agile than I was used to from my former employer, and more degrees of freedom because of the size, because of the financial backing as well.
Nice, nice to hear, because yes, as you mentioned, usually bigger companies are lesser flexible in the field of, for example, granting finances or investments. Yeah. And you bumped into another interesting question, because we talked about hierarchy in the in your company, but when dealing with contracts, I would say in contract sales, selling contract logistics, the thing is that you also most of the times deal with more stakeholders. Yeah, is this the case? For example, for general logistics, you usually logistics manager is the decision maker. But the contracts, I think, the picture is wider there. Yeah. And is this the case? And if this is the case, is it hard or easy, or what best strategies you use for dealing with those multi stakeholders? Yeah.
That is a very valid question. It's not that like when you're with dealing with the bigger company that you necessarily have to deal with more stakeholders. Also, there it depends on the complexity of the project and the urgency of a project with how many people you have to deal with. If it's just a smaller warehouse or a smaller lane that you're working on, then it might be just a few people. So it might be just talk to a technical buyer, somebody who's responsible for the department to procure that service, and then procurement. That's the smaller extent. If you have bigger projects, light tower projects, political projects, you're immediately exposed to have to work with all levels of the hierarchy and use all your levels of hierarchy as well to get the right connections at the right levels. Wouldn't be right for me to talk to a CEO directly. It's better to then use our global head of the industry, for example, to talk to a company CEO or a department, a global department responsible person.
Good. So it's quite a job, yeah. As I understand, still dealing with those bigger companies. And one other question, which I think is quite interesting for our auditory, is being in contracts. I think, I would say this is the sphere where you feel all the tendencies, yeah, because you see what products and what adjustments in products needs to be made. So can you share what's changing within procurement, logistics, some trends from buyers perspective of logistics services? Are there any new things which are becoming more important compared to maybe previous year or years, yeah, because there were a lot of change in the global markets, yeah. So from your opinion, do you see any trends that are shaping shippers world today?
The awareness for green logistics has become bigger.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that it's yet a decision factor for many companies, but many companies now are asking for the footprint at least, which a few years back wasn't the case. Nobody had asked for your CO2 emissions, or just a little number of companies had asked for CO2 emissions for a certain product, or for warehouse, what would be the eco footprint. That's something that has become more and more important. There's companies that are asking more. They're asking for active measures against that. So that's they're required to have solar panels, but it's a standard anyways nowadays. But price still prevails here for many companies, and they would then want to have a comparison. And if it's just a small difference, they would go the greener route. But for the differences that we unfortunately still see in some of the products in a supply chain world, the companies still opt for the conventional transport.
So green is a good thing, but not the very important, yeah, the most important.
Exactly. And aside of that, there's two things that are in everybody's mouth, and I guess it's not the first time that you will hear those. It's AI and humanoids. So
Okay.
those items are becoming the buzzwords at the moment. AI has been for a bit more than a year, I would say, or 2 years, and humanoids are the latest this year to be discussed, to look at. But it's the next thing that's coming. It's not important yet. So you are investing into what are the possibilities for humanoids. Whereas with AI, there's real-time use cases where we can create rate sheets on the fly by recording the conversation, and our say ocean freight reps could create rate sheets based on that during the conversation.
Nice. And there's another thing which I just caught out my mind is the tariff thing, which is all the news are out there talking about USA and Europe, and there's a deal right now. I don't know, maybe it's not your cup of your tea, but are you seeing some changes in this field? Are companies already thinking that we need to maybe move to USA, nearshore, and other things? Is this already happening, or just it's too early to say what will happen?
Well, this isn't exactly my shoe size.
Okay.
What I've seen in the projects and the contacts that I was working on is that some were paused for a moment just because of the uncertainty. The uncertainty that has been out in the open for the past half year or so had put some decisions on hold and are now moving again. Some independently of the latest developments, because the company said, now we have to go on, we have to move on, and others because of the latest developments. But on the bigger scale, I can't speak on that.
Okay, good. So it's a good point to invite you later on. Maybe there will be some new developments here. So Karl, time flies. So to sum up our conversation, I have no doubts that you learned a lot of great lessons in sales, during your trip, and maybe you can, share those lessons, and maybe you can, even transform them into advices for our audience, which want to excel in sales, what to not to do and what to do right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what not to do. I think I tapped into that quite at the beginning. Is because we're talking about a complex product. Don't try to think you know what the customer needs. Do try to first listen. Ask the questions on what are the whys behind a customer coming to you. What is really their burning platform, to understand that, and then tap into those needs, which will help you make your sale more customer oriented. In the end, you want to be customer oriented. You want to have that in your focus, because it's the customer that is going to pay your paycheck in the end. Yeah, it's not just anything else. It's the customer paying your paycheck, and that's the main thing. Think about that's your singularity. The customer's needs, try to fulfill them. Next to that, you need to have your right network. You need to know who to cooperate with, because contract logistics as a complex product is not a one-man show. So cooperate wisely, and you will have a good sales tag team or sales force, and that will help you win with trust.
Okay. Good. I will add one more. As I understand from contracts logistics side, having a long-term strategy, it's also, I would say, key important here. Yeah, maybe you correct me, because if it's complex, long sales cycles, so sales teams need to have this long-term strategy, not, of course, to those you mentioned. Yeah, this is, I would say, it's also, yeah, critical and important in selling, complex logistics solutions.
Definitely, yes. You need to have a strategy. You need to align your efforts to ensure that you're working to one common goal. To achieve that, you need to set the target and the boundaries, and within those, you should operate.
Great, Karl. So thank you for sharing your incredible journey, insights, and advice with us today. And thank you for being with us, taking time being with us today. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and to our listeners, thank you for tuning in into the Voices of Logistics channel podcast, and we hope you enjoyed today's conversation and thoughts and insights. And do not forget to subscribe, share, and like if you seen this episode valuable. Thank you for you all, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.